Level 1. The kid who stayed up too late. At 1:43 in the morning, you are trying to figure out why your own computer keeps connecting to an address you don't recognize. You don't know enough to call it a security problem yet, you just know that something feels wrong. The room is hot because the fan stopped working sometime around midnight. There is a half-empty cup of tea beside the keyboard, a mathematics book underneath your mouse, and your phone is charging from an extension cord that has already been repaired twice. You search the address, then you search the next thing you find, then another. Soon you are reading about networks, authentication, malware, operating systems, and things you have never heard of before. You don't understand half of it. That doesn't bother you. Not yet. What bothers you is that somewhere inside all those lines of information is an answer, and you can't stand not knowing it. Your mother opens the door at 2:18. Still awake? You tell her you're almost finished. You aren't. She leaves a glass of water on the table and closes the door. By sunrise, you finally understand what happened to your computer. It's nothing serious, but you have spent the entire night chasing a question that nobody asked you to solve. That's the first thing you learn about yourself. You like finding things. You just don't know yet where that habit is going to take you. Level 2. The first job. Your first security job pays less than the people around you assume it does. You sit in a room with 6 other analysts, 2 monitors in front of you, a headset pressing against one ear, and a spreadsheet someone has told you is extremely important. Most of the day is boring. That's the part nobody mentioned. You investigate login alerts. You check whether employees are traveling. You close false positives. You reset accounts. You document everything. At first, you hate the routine. Then you notice something. The boring cases are teaching you how normal behavior looks. A few months later, an alert appears just before lunch. A company account is being accessed from somewhere it shouldn't be. You almost close it. Then you notice the timing. The employee is sitting in the office. Their laptop is on their desk. But the account is being used somewhere else. You send a message to your senior analyst. He looks at your screen for about 10 seconds. Don't close it. That is all he says. The investigation eventually becomes someone else's problem, but you were the one who noticed it. On your way home, you buy yourself a better pair of headphones. It's a stupid purchase, you know that. But you can afford them now. For the first time, the job isn't just something you're doing. You're beginning to become good at it. Level 3. The mistake. By your 3rd year, people start coming to you instead of your manager. That feels good. It also makes you careless. You begin answering questions quickly because most of the time you're right. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, you approve a change that shouldn't have been approved. Nothing explodes. Nobody loses millions of dollars. It's worse in a quieter way. An internal system stops behaving correctly. Several teams lose access for part of the afternoon, and you spend the next few hours trying to understand how something that looked harmless became a problem. Your manager doesn't yell. He pulls up a chair. Walk me through it. So you do. You explain what you saw, what you assumed, and where you made the decision. He listens. Then he asks, "Why didn't you ask someone?" You don't have a good answer. Because you thought you knew. That sentence stays with you longer than the incident itself. After that, you change one habit. When you're uncertain, you say you're uncertain. It feels embarrassing at first. Then something unexpected happens. People trust you more. Not because you know everything, because they know you're not pretending to. Level 4. The night shift. The first serious incident happens on a night when you have plans. Your younger sister is visiting the city. She has been asking you for weeks to meet her for dinner. At 8:06 p.m., while you're putting on your shoes, your phone rings. You almost ignore it. Then you see who is calling. 20 minutes later, you're back at your desk. Something is moving through the company's environment that shouldn't be moving there. You aren't the person in charge. Not yet. But you're experienced enough to understand that this is different. The next several hours become a collection of tiny decisions. Which system do you isolate? Who needs to know? What information can be trusted? What should you leave untouched? At 2:11 a.m., your sister sends a message. Guess dinner didn't happen. You type an apology. Delete it. Type another. Delete that too. Finally, you send, "I'm sorry, work blew up." She replies with a thumbs up. Nothing dramatic. No argument. That's what makes it worse. At 5:40 in the morning, the incident is contained. You drive home through streets that are almost empty. You realize you missed dinner. You also realize something else. This career can take pieces of your life without asking permission. Level 5. The person everyone calls. A few years pass. Your salary improves. Your apartment improves. Your responsibilities improve much faster. You are now the person people call when something is already going wrong. Sometimes the phone rings at midnight. Sometimes at 6 in the morning. Sometimes during your vacation. You stop being surprised by it. Your friends joke that you never turn your phone off. They're right. One summer, you are on a beach with your partner when an executive calls. You look at the screen. Your partner looks at you. You don't have to answer. You know that's not true. You answer. 20 minutes later, you're sitting in the hotel bathroom with the door locked, looking at reports on your laptop while waves hit the beach outside. When you come back, your partner doesn't ask what happened. They just say, "Dinner's getting cold." You apologize. They shrug. The relationship survives. But something changes. You start noticing how often the people closest to you have learned not to expect you. That bothers you more than the late nights ever did. Level 6. The decision maker. Eventually, you stop being measured by how quickly you can solve technical problems. Now you're measured by the decisions you make before problems happen. You sit in meetings where engineers want to launch something tomorrow, and you are the person explaining why they shouldn't. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're right. The difficult part is that nobody tells you which one you are while you're making the decision. One morning, a product team asks for an exception to a security requirement. The deadline is tight. The commercial team is already unhappy. Your boss tells you privately that delaying the launch will cost money. You read the proposal again. Then you say no. The meeting ends badly. For the rest of the day, you wonder whether you made the right call. 3 months later, a similar system at another company suffers a serious breach. Your team reviews what happened. The weakness is almost identical to the one you refuse to accept. Nobody congratulates you. There is no award. You simply close the report and go back to work. That's when you understand something strange about senior security work. Your best decisions are often the ones nobody notices. Level 7. The reputation. By now, your reputation has become an asset. People know you as the person who doesn't panic. That sounds flattering. It isn't always. It means people bring you their worst problems. A young analyst once calls you late at night because he thinks he has made a serious mistake. You remember being that age. You tell him to slow down. You ask what he knows for certain. Then what he thinks he knows. Then what he is assuming. You spend 40 minutes going through the problem. Eventually, you discover the situation isn't nearly as bad as he thought. Before hanging up, he says, "How do you stay calm?" You look around your office. You have no clever answer. You don't always stay calm. You've simply learned not to make decisions while you're scared. That lesson took years, and it cost you more than any certification ever did. Because becoming good at security means becoming comfortable with uncertainty. You spend your career preparing for events that may never happen. And when they don't happen, nobody knows how much work prevented them. Level 8. The cost of being right. Your biggest crisis comes when you're old enough to have something to lose. A major vulnerability appears in a system your company depends on. The technical details are complicated. The decision isn't. You recommend shutting part of the system down. It will hurt revenue. It will frustrate customers. Executives argue. Someone suggests waiting for more evidence. You understand why. You also know that waiting may be the more dangerous choice. So you make the call. The system goes offline. For several hours, thousands of people can't use it. The internet complains. Customers complain louder. Your name appears in internal conversations you never see. You sit in a conference room with a paper cup of coffee that has gone cold and watch the numbers change on a screen. Then the investigation finishes. The vulnerability was real. The shutdown prevented something much worse. People thank you afterward. You don't feel particularly heroic. You feel tired. Because you also know what would have happened if you had been wrong. That is the part people don't see. Elite judgment isn't confidence. It's accepting that sometimes you have to choose the least dangerous option without knowing whether it is the correct one. Level 9. The expert. Eventually, you reach the level you imagined when you were that kid, staring at a computer at 2 in the morning. You are invited to conferences. Companies want your advice. You make more money than you once thought was possible. You can afford things that used to feel completely out of reach. But the strange thing is that your life doesn't feel dramatically different. You still check your phone when it vibrates. You still notice unusual login patterns when you shouldn't be thinking about work. You still wake up sometimes because you remembered a detail from a meeting. One evening, you were sitting in a hotel bar after speaking at a conference. Across the room, a group of younger security professionals are arguing about a technical problem. You listen for a minute. They're excited. They're competitive. They're convinced they are going to change everything. You recognize yourself in them. Then one of them opens a laptop. The glow reminds you of your old bedroom, the cheap desk, the broken fan, the glass of water your mother left beside the keyboard. For a second, you wonder what that younger version of you would think about the person sitting here now. Probably impressed. Probably disappointed by how much time you spent working. Both would be fair. Because the career gave you a life you couldn't have imagined. It also quietly replaced parts of the life you originally wanted. Level 10. What remains? You don't leave cybersecurity because you stop caring about it. You leave because eventually you understand that there are other things you want to be good at. You start sleeping normally. You answer messages when you have time instead of immediately. You visit your sister without bringing a laptop. One afternoon, you clean out an old drawer. Inside is your first notebook. The pages are almost falling apart. There are terrible diagrams, passwords you shouldn't have written down, notes about systems you haven't touched in years, and one question written across the top of a page. You read it twice. You were trying to understand why something had connected to your computer that night. That's it. That tiny question started everything. Not money, not status, not some grand mission. You simply wanted to know. You became someone other people trusted when things went wrong. But you also learned that being needed isn't the same thing as being happy. You close the notebook. Your phone vibrates on the table. For a moment, you don't look at it. Then you do. It's a message from a young analyst asking for advice. You read the question. You remember being 23 and certain that becoming an expert meant finally reaching a place where nothing could surprise you. You were wrong. The deeper you went, the more complicated everything became. That's probably the real dark side of becoming elite. You don't become fearless. You simply become more aware of what can go wrong. You don't gain complete control. You become responsible for making decisions without it. You put the notebook back in the drawer. This time, you leave the phone on the table. And for once, you go outside without checking it again. Somewhere, another person is probably sitting in a dark room, staring at a problem they don't understand. They may think the goal is to become the person who knows everything. You know better now. The real goal was never knowing everything. It was learning how to keep looking when you didn't.